Okay, so Sajal, the recording has been started, right? So I'll be tracking chat window along with that. So I'm placing all the participants on mute. So you can go ahead and start the session. All the best.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. This is
mute on. Mute off.
This session is primarily aimed toward beginners. So if you are familiar with shell scripting and you want to know about how scripting is done or how programming is done through PowerShell and PowerCLI, this is the session for you. This is not going to be an advanced session that I planned for the next session. This session I have a few slides with a lot of text. I promise in the next sessions it will not be there, because right now in this session I wanted to cover a lot of background, wanted to give you the perspective. So there are text slides are there, but please bear with me. I will try to give a demo as more as possible and make it relevant to you. Right? So today's agenda is why automation, what is PowerShell and PowerCLI, the different basic constructs, demo, and then further reading and what I'm going to cover in the next session, followed by question and answer. Okay. So before I go ahead and start, few lines about me. I've been in the industry for 13+ years. Currently working as a solution architect for customer success engineering for CMBO R&D in VMware. I have been awarded 2016 and 2017 vExpert award. I also authored a Mastering PowerCLI book, regularly blog at vtechguru.com and blogs.vmware.com, and I have a few certifications, industry certifications. Right? So without wasting much time, let's start. Why automation? I know that everyone probably, we are ministry specialists, we are IT admins, we are IT professionals, we know why automation is there, but still just to give you an idea. See, today's data centers, they're fairly complex. When I say fairly complex, it's an understatement. You have so many components running in your data center. So it becomes really tough to manage everything manually. And when you try to do something manually, obviously there are certain errors that creep in, some problems that you face. So we try to automate the tasks. Say, for example, you regularly create a virtual machine. Say you want to create one virtual machine, two virtual machines, that's fine. But what about 100 virtual machines? Do you really want to create all of them one by one? Obviously no, right? The second thing is automation always reduces the human intervention, and thus there will be less errors. So once a script that is running fine for you, that means it is going to run fine each and every time. And consistent results. That's exactly what I said in the previous sentence. That means if a script is running fine for first time, it is supposed to run fine for the 100th time as well. So overall, it would decrease the runtime, response time, and it increases the number of endpoints that you can manage. So through automation, you get to do all these things, but automation is it is typically used in each and every aspect of your data center. You automate service desk, you automate password resets functionality, say for example knock automation and the other things that you do. So you can automate each and every task that you do in your environment. Now in virtualization specifically, this becomes very important. Say for example, in virtualized environment, it is very common to have VM sprawl, or say for example snapshots. Someone comes to you and say, okay, hey, I have 2,000 virtual machines and I take snapshots on a regular interval. I want to find out how many snapshots are there, which is redundant functions. I don't need the snapshots, and I want to create 100 VMs urgently for that new project. I want to delete the snapshot and create 100 VMs. So how do you do that? So to do that, you typically use any kind of scripting environment. For a virtualized environment, for VMware environment, PowerCLI is the key, which has a wide variety of commandlets and options for you. So before I go ahead and talk about PowerCLI, we need to know what is PowerShell, because PowerCLI is based on PowerShell, and that is the core of functionality. PowerCLI is just an extension of PowerShell. So PowerShell is an object-oriented scripting language. Now, when I say object-oriented scripting language, the difference between the traditional shell and PowerShell is traditional shells are text-based. You input the text, you give output as text. In contradiction, PowerShell always works on objects. It takes objects, gives object as an output. So it's much modern. It's from Microsoft. They have based it on .NET. Is underlying foundation or framework on which PowerShell is built. And since it's object, you think about the new age or new era programming languages. These are all object-oriented programming languages. So PowerShell is in line with those programming languages. So you need to understand, think a bit differently from the way you think typical, traditional shell scripting like Bash scripting or other scripting languages. In here, you will have to think, okay, everything that I see is an entity, is an object. You work on them, take them as input, and give output as an object. The latest version is 5.1. Now, PowerShell has four native things, four types of commands that it runs. First thing that, and the most important thing, the way it's known is commandlets. CMDLETS, the way it's pronounced is commandlets. And it's the native commands for in PowerShell. Next, you can create functions and call a function as a PowerShell function. You can run in PowerShell scripts and other standalone executable programs through PowerShell. Now, commandlets, I know it's a full screen of text. It's just for reference that's there. I'm going to cover very less about it. So commandlets are a lightweight command. It's like a single command that you can have, like any shell command that you get CD or dir. Those are the commands. Similarly, commandlets are the commands for PowerShell. Right? Typically, they are executed at the PowerShell environment. You can call them through APIs as well. They perform any action and return .NET framework. The underlying framework is .NET. So they will return you .NET framework object. The object that they return is based on .NET style. The most important thing is they work as a verb-noun pair. So all the commandlets that you will see, it typically has a verb-noun. There's a structure, like say for example, get command, get help, set execution policy. Like set something, get something. This is the typical way. The first part is the verb, through which you do something, and the second part is the noun, on which you are, or what you want to do, exact action. This is the way commandlets are typically formed. The importance is, if you are writing your own a function or another script or say module, typically you would like to frame it in the similar way. In a verb-noun format. So you need to keep in mind that there is a format. Advantage of that is it's easier to remember what the things. Like for example, I need to create something. So obviously I will say new, or I want to get something. Obviously get. I want to change some variables or change some parameters. Set. That's how it would start. So I will focus or minimize my range of search with this verb type of starting. So how they are different? These are instances of .NET framework classes. So they are not standalone. So if you do standalone executable, so like for example, you install Windows, you have the typical DOS commands, traditional DOS commands like CD, ls, or dir. commands, mkdir commands, which are operating system wide. You don't need anything extra. But these commandlets are not out of the box. If you do not have PowerShell environment, traditionally they are included in the operating system nowadays. But if you do not have PowerShell environment, you don't have the commandlets. They cannot run as it is as a single instance. Right? They are very easy to create. Really easy to create. Just a couple of dozen of lines and you can have a commandlet ready for yourself. Okay, one important aspect, since it's not a standalone environment, so their parsing is error presentation, output formatting is not done by commandlet. So if you are writing a commandlet, you don't have to worry about those things. PowerShell runtime will handle the output formatting and stuff. You can simply use the inherent output formatting. And commandlets, one important aspect probably I will talk about in the next slide. They are record oriented because they process a single object at a time. It's not parallel processing. With the objects are coming, it just works on a single object at a time. Just keep that in mind. Right? The commandlet categories, typically the way you will give a commandlet is the commandlet name and then parameters, multiple parameters, one or it may be multiple. The parameters start with a hyphen notation, and then you give the arguments. Arguments are the variables that you want to pass or some value that you want to pass on to the commandlet. So this is the typical structure of a commandlet. Right? Give the commandlet parameter and then argument. Right? Pipeline, as I was saying in the previous slide, it's a very important concept in PowerShell. It's a series of commands separated by the pipe operator. What it means, it executes from the left side, and output of that command is the input of the next command. So you can pipe together multiple commands. That's the strength and power of PowerShell. So you execute something, get the output, get an object, you pipe that object as an input on this next commandlet. Right? So that's how you chain together a series of commandlets to achieve a complex task. Say you can achieve really complex tasks in single line itself. You can do that because that output gets the becomes the input of the next commandlet. That's very easy to do. Second thing is wildcards. Typically you must substitute say a part of character or substitute the complete string. You would use wildcards. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind, that this will help you in your scripting. Couple of things. When you write a PowerShell script, say for example, how many times you wish that you have written a shell script and you ran it and it did something destructive and there was no way you could stop it, right? We all wish that. At least I have been into that situation multiple of times that I didn't want to do it, but it did something. I ran it and then it did something else for me. The script was my mistake, but then it did. Here in PowerShell, before you run something, you have a what if and a prototype command. So you just give a command and then say what if. It says what if you run this, what it will do. So let's give you a demonstration here. Say Say I open Notepad. Simple example. So I have opened Notepad, right? So get process. Again, note that get, I'm getting all the processes. It's a verb noun, all the process, right? So get process shows a list of the processes that's running, right? As I mentioned, that pipe, I can pipe it through anything else, or say I would use wild characters here. So I see that this is a notepad that notepad process that is running, and now I want to kill that. So I want to use stop process. It's similar to Linux command, and by default you have cap functionality. So you press cap, it would cycle through the, it will autocomplete the commandlet for you, or if it has multiple options, it would cycle through the commandlet, right? So stop process, the ID is 3756, right? 3756, and then instead of running this, I say what if. It tells me performing the operation stop process on target notepad. So it actually did not do that. It said that this is what you are going to do, right? So this is like a warning. Before you do anything destructive, you can actually use what if and then run that. In a second step, you can, okay, I'm pretty sure that this is what I want to do. I want to do it. So this is where what if helps you. The second thing is confirm. So you could ask me whether I really want to perform this operation or not. Default is yes. I say no. It will not perform for me. So if you want any commandlet that you know that I'm running some commandlet which I want to give multiple warnings, you can use what if, you can use confirm to say something. So these are the parameters: what if, confirm, verbose. Verbose will give you the detailed output of the commandlet. Okay, this is exactly what it's doing. Debug. If you want to debug a particular step, you can use debug. Error action is one important aspect of running any commandlet. It tells what exact option you have or what exact action that you want to do if you face any error. So typically, silently continue we will use to suppress some error and simply go ahead and execute the rest of the commandlet. So error action is if you face any error, what would be your reaction to that error? Error variable is, say sometimes in a script I'm running say a couple of 50 or 100 lines of scripts and doing something, and I want to store the variable and parse it later on, that exact what error was there. So you can simply give error variable and give a variable name, so the output of the error would go there. And the last one is out variable. Out variable is, as the name suggests, if you want to store the output of any commandlet into a variable and then use it later on, then you can do that. Otherwise, what happens? Output typically goes into your screen, the default computer screen or somewhere. You can, if you want to store it, you can store it. The other thing is format list and format table. These are the way you output, typically format the output. Say for example, get process, and I say format list. See, the output changed. The way table is a tabular format. The typical format by default it would show you in table, but if you want to change the output, the way you look into it is our format list, and it has so I don't need to type this much. I can simply say FL or FT. So there is a commandlet which said get alias and say FL. So it would tell you that FL is an alias of format list. So this is the way you can actually get an alias of all the commandlets that's there. So for example, if I say get alias, it would list me all the alias of the commandlets, the bigger, like for example, SC is set content. So sometimes we become lazy, we don't want to type that much, you can simply go ahead and use the aliases there. It's a much shorter form. This is how you would find out that what this exactly means. Right? So next time you see in a script that someone has given RSN and you want to find out what is that RSN does, simply go ahead and check RSN. RSN is your remove PS session, right? The get alias is something which is helpful. Now, before, at least for me, before I go ahead and go into any programming language or anything new, I want to know where I can get help. What is the help functionality that is there? So getting help is very important. probably after you install PowerCLI environment or PowerShell environment, the first command that you would love to run is update help. Update help module force. It will update all the help that's there, and say help command.
Sajal, sorry to interrupt you. There's a question from Biswajit. So he has some question. Biswajit, you can go ahead and ask the question. I have unmute you.
Sajal, my question is regarding that so before executing command, we can see what are the effect like what if and when else, or I can confirm the action.
Right.
So what exactly I will get these things, like how to know this? These are the arguments. How do we get this, like?
So I will show you something else. Actually, probably I should have covered this first. Thing is, there is something called PowerShell IAC. There is an inbuilt IDE for PowerShell development that Microsoft gives you. On the right hand side, you have a list of all the commands. Right? Okay. But apart from that, say for example, I said get process. And then I say just hyphen. So if when I have given hyphen, it gives me a list of the parameters that it takes.
Okay.
Right? So for example, I have given this name and say notepad. Now I want to see what are the other options that it gives. You see the verbose, the debug option, the error action, the warning action. There are a lot of lists that you get to see what it is doing, right? But
okay.
What if is something which is inbuilt. That's what I wanted to confirm, that what if and confirm functions are there. Okay. Let us run the same command that's here, right?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we will do this again, and between the two we will give some time.
So I got to see this, right? So stop, say process, and then hyphen. I see I can call a process by name or ID. Typically, say I'm using ID here 37, and see the beautiful part of it. The moment I say stop process and hyphen ID, it actually shows me a list of all the processes that's running in the environment, right? So actually, I don't have to go ahead and type it. I can simply say select from the list that okay, this is 3756. I can select from the list where the 3756 is. Yeah, this is 3756, right? And then I say, oh, what if confirm, right? Now, note one difference. I don't know whether you have noticed. When I was typing get process, you are just getting a process. There was this what if or confirm was not there, because you are not doing something, you are just getting something. But here, you are going to stop something. You are going to kill something. Now, the command comes that what if I want to do this, right? Or I can simply give you confirm and type tab. It tells you whether you want to do it or not. I will again showcase what I'm really saying. To get process now, if I see you don't get what if or confirm, because you are not actually doing something, you are just reading something. Right? Here you get error action that if it cannot read or cannot get the process, if it throws out an error to you, how you are going to handle it. So probably again. And then error action I give, say I was talking about silently continue and then ignore or continue or stop, suspend. You have these set of options. So it is context aware that on which context you want to run this, and against that it will give you these options, right? We will cover that in next session probably, where we are talking about advanced functions, when you can write your advanced function which typically work like a commandlet, though they are not a commandlet, but work similar, something similar, and you can pass certain parameters where your function will have these functionalities. Okay? They are built into the commandlet, and you can build your functions like that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. I got the chat from Bishwajit.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
So update helps. So probably, especially you are learning it for the first time and you want to get the help. The first thing that you should do is update the help modules in your environment. Once you do that, next thing is how to get help. Getting help in PowerShell is pretty simple and it's really robust. I really love the help functionalities here. The commandlet for help is get help. Get help, right? And I can get a help on get help as well. It tells me what's the name, what's the syntax, what are the aliases, or any other remarks. Say get help and then say PowerCLI community. It tells you this. Now I want to get help on say stock process. That was the commandlet, right? So it tells me this. This is what exactly it does: name, syntax, aliases, remarks. What if I want to get help in full? It tells me a lot more information about it. Typically, get help will not give you this detailed information, but when you say get help full, it will tell you the detailed parameters like parameters confirm whether it is required or not, whether it has positional values or not, parameter set name, and all these details you will get. So if you want to know more about a commandlet, how it is utilized and all this stuff, probably you will say full. And then there is something called detail. It tells you a bit more detailed than typical get help, not full, but it gives you more detail. The most helpful, at least for me, typically I find out is examples. It gives you an example of how you can run it. This particular commandlet, for example, I want to know there's a commandlet, say connect via CI server or see it's cycling through all the commandlets that start with connect. So I wanted to see the connect VI server and examples. It gives me detailed examples of that commandlet, detailed usage of that commandlet. So I don't want to see, I know that how to use that commandlet. I just wanted to understand how it is used, the few examples. So now it just tells you the name and gives you the examples 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 examples. So it tells you, okay, these are the usage of this particular commandlet. The one thing that is very interesting here, again, when you write a function in PowerShell, you can write the functions in such a way that it will have your own help functionality or example functionality, right? So you can have write your own function and module, and where you query like this, will get the examples. The examples that you have written for your function would be shown, and that is pretty flexible in all itself. The last option with get help I wanted to show is online function. So when I say online, it opens a web page, queries the particular help page, and from internet you can see it automatically opens. See, I wanted to see help of a commandlet connect VI server, which is from VMware, right? So it has opened a VMware.com website where the detailed description of the particular commandlet is given. If I open get help and say get process and say online, it opens up Microsoft page because it knows that which page this commandlet is from which company, where we will get the details of this particular process. or that particular commandlet. So that is very interesting. You can simply go ahead and check in a lot more detail if you want to read it through on a web page, because it's much more readable format than typical screen, typical command screen. So you can do that. So any commandlet you need help with, these are the way you would get help, right? The thing is now, PowerCLI, why I'm covering these things, because PowerCLI, the principle working, everything is similar. You just have separate set of commandlets from PowerCLI. So the way you would set up your environment is you would download and install typically by your Windows machine, be it a desktop class machine, say Windows 7, Windows 10, 8.1, or 2012 or 2008, they will have PowerShell inbuilt into it. The latest version is 5.1. If you want to upgrade to it, go ahead and download the package, install it, and then you need to install the PowerCLI packages as well. So for example, I have installed this PowerCLI package. Double click it, it would run the installer for you. And then you need to select, say, okay, these are the modules that comes with PowerCLI, executable. Earlier we had multiple executables for multiple modules. Right now, everything is integrated. So you get the vSphere PowerCLI, vCloud Air, or VCD PowerCLI packages are also there. Update Manager has its own separate modules, and Operations Manager and Horizon View is the latest addition. And you can do a lot of things through PowerCLI commandlet. Right? And you select that next, and go as a typical installation that you would do. So once the installation is done, now one thing to note that these modules are the modules from VMware. So the module location would be, you install it, if you have taken the default location, this would go into program files, and then infrastructure, PowerCLI. Notice that there are two different folders. One is modules, one is scripts. So this modules folder has all the modules that VMware provides into the normal installation. And that is the executable is 6.5 release 1. That is the latest version. So all these modules are there. Now, when you open PowerShell, say IAC or normal PowerShell commandlet, it will not load the modules by default, because it's not there in the default path. Unless until you are opening the VMware PowerCLI console, which exactly loading the module C, loading PowerCLI, you will not get by default. But this particular, at least for me, I don't like this console window that much, because IAC gives me a lot more functionality. So I typically prefer using this because I have the commandlet list here, all the commands. I can simply select the command and I can get the details of that, related objects and the location where it is. Typically I will do that, and I can write my own script here and see the output. So I prefer working with IAC. But since the modules are not there, so each and every time I will have to install the modules manually. Or say you want to customize the look and feel. So what you would do, first thing that you would check is the profile, default profile path. So in Windows environment, PowerShell environment, that is your profile path. By default, this file is not there. So profile, you can check, say, test path $profile. I want to check whether the file is there or not. Right now it's saying true because there's a profile file there. If it's not there, it would say false. You can simply go ahead and create the file by saying new item profile and type file, and or you can simply go ahead and manually create it. It's typically under your documents folder. So you go to documents folder, and in this PowerShell, this particular profile would be there. The one thing that I did for my environment is, you remember the modules, the VMware PowerCLI modules that get shared, and then there's a scripts folder. This particular module actually loads all the VMware modules. So in my environment, what I did, I went to this profile folder, created my profile. I went to this profile and created this profile file. All I am doing here is just going into that particular folder where like C program files, VMware infrastructure, PowerCLI scripts, and just running that script and then moving back to C colon, right? So now if I open, whenever I open my IAC instance, by default it loads all the VMware modules there. So I don't have to do it manually each and every time. So this is a little hack that helps me in, saves my time. I don't have to do it each and every time. So you can go ahead and employ that as well, right? So I have already spoken about this modules and scripts. Before I go ahead and say basic constructs, I will talk about a bit more how you can get help of specific commandlets. Say I say get modules. I know that VMware module is there, so I say get module. It would show me all the modules that is there in my environment. I want to make it specific. So get module VMware star. Show me all the modules with VMware and see the version, the 6.0. That means that there was it was not updated recently. It was like, say for example, the version was older version, still coming from an older version, and 6.5 and 7.0 versions that you get. So now, so I see that there's a module name VMware, say vmautomation.core, or say cloud, or say license. What does it do? I would say get, what are the commands are there under that? Get command and say module, and say VMware dot say vmautomation dot license. Okay, it's not, yes, did I do any typo or automation? So I can see there's a single command there. Not much interesting, but let's see. VDS is something which is added recently. I can see that I can manipulate my distributed switch using the commandlets that available under this particular module. Right? And now I can see, I can get help on any one of this. Get help. Say, get help, I can simply give the command get VD switch. Right? And say if there's a command as set VD switch, I can see that there's a command set VD switch, right? So what set VD switch does, and I want to see the examples of that, how we can utilize that. I can see that these are okay. This is how I can set a VD switch, customize a VD switch as per my requirement. So this is how you would probably explore the commandlet, or you can simply go ahead and explore it from the VMware say PowerCLI commandlets reference. You go here and then you can search for all the commands. You can, on the left hand side, you can see get, you can get, set, new, remove. These are the commandlets. You can further drill down and say remove cluster. What this does and what the examples and all that stuff. So you can actually explore the commandlet what's available for you there. This is how you can explore. any further questions on this? How you go ahead and navigate your ways through VMware modules and the command list, how you get help and stuff? Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about basic constructs of any programming language. So I'm going to talk about something which is not only PowerCLI. This applies to any programming language. These are the basic foundation of any programming languages. So any language that you talk about, this needs to cover this. First thing, you need to have variable, right? How do you define your variable in PowerShell? If in our college days, if you remember C, we would say var, and then say Java, I say var, and then define the variable. And in C, we will have to type it, like it's integer or char or something, character or something, or array or something. Here, PowerShell, it's very simple and straightforward. Just give a $sign and the variable name. That's it. You don't have to type it. It's dynamic runtime. It will store whatever you want to store it to. Right? Because the basic reason is everything is an object. If you store a text, it's still an object. If you store a number, it's still an object. Right? So it is storing everything as an object. So that's why you don't need to mention anything. So for example, say I say new variable, right, equals to 0. So that's how we would define, and then now type new variable, get to see the output. The same variable, I say this is it. I'm writing a string there, right? So see the same variable, I'm typecasting it as per my requirement. I can store the things that I want. Or the more interesting way, say get process. Now new variable stores a list of all the process that's there. So now I say new variable, it stores everything. Right? So that's how the flexibility of defining a variable in PowerShell comes. You don't need to worry about it. Just $sign and then go ahead and utilize that variable. That's how easy it is. Right? Next thing is conditional logic. Any programming language needs to have what it needs to have. It needs to have a way of defining a variable where you can store something and work on that particular variable. And then next thing, you need to make decisions. What if this happens, then what do I do? Right? That is the basic construct of any programming language. So conditional logic or conditional logic using loops, each and every programming language, they differ the way they implement these logics. Say defining a variable will be different in PowerShell, will be different in Shell, will be different in Python or Perl. But they will, what ultimately they are doing, they are implementing a variable. When I say if a logical conditional logic, each and everyone have their own ways of defining the syntax, but the concept is each and every one of them are actually defining a conditional logic. So you need to understand that, and that is the reason I always say, specifically I say that if you master one programming language, you can master any other programming language, because your underlying logic is same. It's just the way you implement, the syntax gets different, right? So the comparison operators, before we go ahead and talk the logic, conditional logic, the if statements and the for loops, we need to have some operators, like how do I compare? Like -eq is equal to, not equal to, less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to. All programming languages cover this some way or other. And the logical operators are unique operators. You don't need two functions. Like equal to, when you say equal to, so you have a left hand side and you have a right hand side. Say for example, less than or greater than, something is greater than or less than. So you are checking between two variables. Whereas logical operators are a single operator, say not. So not true is false. You need single variable, and on top of that you are applying some logic, right? So not So logical NOT, logical AND, or logical OR. Logical AND and logical OR is typically something you would have two variables and do a logical ANDing between these two. But these are the typical operators that you will utilize to make your decisions easier, right? Next comes the if and switch statement. Switch is not used that much nowadays. If is something that you would see. If else statement is something you would see each and everywhere. Any script that you open, any programming language, for example, be it C code or Java code or JavaScript code or .NET code, you will find if. Because as I said, the basics are there. So if syntax is if condition, and then you write some script block. So if this is true, then the script block is run. You can run nested checks with else if, and then else. If everything else fails, then else will be run. Typically we say if else. If this is true, then do this. Otherwise, do that. So let's see an example. Open this. So what I'm doing here, forget about parameter. We will the param function. We will talk about it next session probably, how you pass the parameters there in the function or say script. What I'm doing, if A greater than B, then I'm saying A is bigger than B. Else if A less than B, I'm saying A is less than B, or just saying both are equal. So if I go to and then run this conditional logic and say 4, 5. Those two parameters, so it tells me that 4 is less than 5. This is a typical way I would do my check. So I got two parameters. I'm saying if, then the condition, then I'm saying this condition, okay, this does that, and then doing some stuff. Else this is something if I say do this, says 6 is bigger than 5, and if I make it equal, it runs the else portion. So this is how I would make my conditional logic, where I take if something happens, then what am I supposed to do? Where it would help you, typically commandlets are single line. So you cannot always do a single line, so achieve a complex set of tasks in a single commandlet. Sometimes you have to make a decision. So these are all decision-making functions for you. You want to make a decision, you would do that through this, right?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So about the conditions, would you please go to that slide?
This one or this one?
No, the previous one.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the comparison equal to. So here I can check the value in the numeric or the text as well. Just like 0 is equal to 0 or something like that. The production name should be like this is equal to this.
So why don't we write this here? Say right?
Yeah. And suppose
then say
what I would like to ask that if my variable A is okay.
I can pass a text or a variable here, right? I can use it both ways.
No, not like that. So suppose instead of the putting the value of A and B as a number, if I am putting the value as a text.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Let's see.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I was saying. Whenever I define a variable, I don't define it as a string or number, literally. Now you need to tell me, right?
Yeah, I got your point. Yes, thank you.
So I can use it either way. It can work both ways. So that's what I wanted to showcase you. That nothing better than showing you actually how it behaves. And in turn, we got something very interesting that you define a variable and you can put pass a string or a single character or a number, right? That is how we would utilize that. Okay.
That is good. Thank you. Yeah.
Well. So now the loop. There are a lot of loops: do, while, do, until, for each object. The other ones, do, while, do, until, for, are not used that much than for each and for each object in PowerShell. I will tell you the reasons, but in traditional sense, in any programming language, you would find an implementation of do, while, do, until, or for. You don't find the implementation of for each and for each object. I will cover them later on. But the difference between all this, all the above four, is do while. If something say do and then the check at the end while. So do while is you go into the loop, you execute it at. Right, that's the thing. So you want to do something that first time it will execute whatever the condition is, and then it will check for the condition. So that's where you would use do while. While is something till the time the condition is true. Say while while I less than 10, print I and I plus plus. So it would run exactly 10 times. So it would print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say, and show you the things. Say for example, let's see. While I equals to, let us do this, $I equals to 0. I'm assigning it, I'm not checking it. This is an assignment operator. Right? While $I less than 10, and say write host $I. And say how, and say $I plus plus. Right? So till the time the I was less than 10, it ran the script and started with 0 and then did that. Right? So this is what a while loop. Till the time your condition is true, it would run the script. Do until is till the point it is something is reached, it would run. So probably you would wait for some inputs or traps for something, and then say do until something happens, until the time it would go into a loop and then work for you. For is a traditional for loop. For is like you initialize, condition, and then repeat. The same while loop, I can write it this way. Say for, right? See, for $j equals to 0, $j less than 10, and say $j plus plus, and to write host $j. So here, oh sorry, my bad, less than, we do not use less than here, we say LT.
$J not defined.
No, it's not that. I mean, it's not comparable. I need to check what it's saying. Okay, I will cover that later on. Let's see what those simple things. The next thing that we would do is for each loop. For each item in a collection, you run some code block. See, I have a for each loop. I have said the $sum equals to 0, and then for each $I in a range 1 to 10, I'm doing something. So I say for each loop, it shows me 55. It calculates the sum and shows me the thing. So for each item in $I in a range, you mention a collection of items or range, and then it would calculate it for. That's what for each does, right? Now for each and for each object, they look pretty similar, they work pretty similar, but they are two different things. Like for example, when you say get alias for each, it says that it's for each object, but there's a big difference between these two. When you use for each inside of a pipeline, it works as a for each object, but when you set it at the beginning of a pipeline, it works as for each. The difference being for each will get all the objects and then start working on them, whereas for each object will start processing the object the moment one object comes. So it will not wait for all the objects. So for example, you are working through an array of say 1,000 objects, and if you use for each, it will wait till it gets all the 1,000 objects and then start working on it. Whereas for each object, the moment the first object comes, it will start working and as it comes. So if you are working with for each, you will have to make sure that you have enough memory in your environment. Right? That is the major difference. So, but traditionally we would prefer to use for each object because it will be faster to run. You don't wait; it just simply starts executing. That is the difference. In certain places they would work similar. We don't use for that much. We use for each object because we are working with the objects here. Right? Next thing is functions. So these are basic concepts. First you have conditional logic, then you have the loops, and then the functions. So function is a list of statements that you can club together and run it as a function. And typically you would use it when you have to write something which you are going to reuse multiple times. Right? So you are writing a program, and in that program you have certain piece of code, say 10 lines, which you need to do repeatedly, right? So instead of doing it with writing that same code, say 10 times, you write it one place, you define a function, and each time that portion comes, it just calls out that function and runs it. That's what the functions are for. The syntax is you define a function with the name function, then give a function name, bracket, within the bracket you give the variable names. It may or may not give the variables, because variables are the inputs to your function, and then do something and come back, right? This is what your function structure is. But before you start, you need to say one thing. By default, the Windows PowerShell that comes in, it does not execute any command. So you need to set the execution policy. Say the get execution policy. Right now it's unrestricted from my environment, which is not very secure because it can run anything. So typically if you say get help on, by default it will be restricted. So you need to unrestrict it, which set execution policy. And if I see the examples, before you start doing anything, I have not updated the help functionality. Okay, so the policies are execution policy, unrestricted, remote signed, all signed, restricted, So by default it is restricted, so typically you will say remote sign or whatever is signed in your environment, you can utilize that. So you will have to, before you start doing anything, you will say run as an administrator of, run a commandlet or say instance of PowerShell window as an administrator and say set execution policy and say unrestricted or something. Right? That's what you will have to do. So function, say I have this function, get vCenter information, the exact format, function name, and then you give the you define it as a function, and then say get vCenter information and VC name and user name, do something, and then you call upon that function by the function name only. You don't have to do anything else. You just call upon the name and pass the parameters. Right? For example, here it's taking 2 parameters, so I'm just passing the parameters. That's how I would utilize the function or run the function. Okay. So it was function. Right? So it's ran my portion. And that is how you will define the function. Coming back to PowerCLI environment, the first thing that I will do is like try to automate my vCenter environment, vSphere environment, right? So the first thing that I will do is connect to a vCenter server. CI server is the cloud infrastructure server. I will say connect a CI server. Connect VI server. The parameter, I can give a parameter name, say vCenter local, and then I can give the user ID and details here, and then some password. I want to give that password, or I don't want to give it here. So it would ask me for the credentials. That is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, say I don't mention anything. Say connect VI server and just the vCenter server name. So the parameters are not it again asks for my credential. So I can specify the credentials in the command line. That way I can do it, or it can typically ask me the thing. Note that the parameter server, it's not mandatory. So I'm just giving the vCenter server lab.local, and it understands that in this position I am expecting a server name. So it will try to connect to that server. If I give something else here, it will not understand. But anyway, so typically the way I would say connect it or give this command in my script, so I love to make it more readable. So give as a server, this is my server, and then there is one way of, instead of giving username password, I can simply say credential and then say get credential. So each and every time someone runs this, so in my script, if I use this commandlet in this way, so each and every time it would ask me for my credentials. Yeah, I say so it got connected. Right? It will tell you that, okay, this is the vCenter server on this port, and this is the user who has connected to that vCenter server. So now I am connected to a vCenter server. The first thing that we know that in a vCenter server, we have under vCenter server, we have data center. So let's see the data center, right? I see how many data centers are there. I can see that there's one data center there. What about my cluster? Git cluster. So I see that there are 2 clusters with this name. I can further drill down. If I want to know the details of a particular cluster, I can simply say get cluster name, say lab cluster. What if I give it as a lab, say cluster? So it is not case sensitive, right? You need to note that this is not case sensitive. Now, I say get VM. I would like to get a list of the virtual machines that's there. Here you see that format list and format table. By default, it's format table, and I cannot see the full name. So I want to see the full name. Here I can run format list, and I will get to see a lot more detail than format table. Format table actually formats in and hides certain information. Here I can see a lot more detail on that. So coming back to this, yeah, I want to see test. Say I want to see get cluster, see the name VM. I want to see, okay. I wanted to see where this actual virtual machine is running, which cluster this is part of. So similar way, I can get a list of hosts. So get host. No, sorry. Get host gives you the virtual. Get VM host. Right? I see that these are the ESXi servers that there. So get VM host and say VM. And I want to see the same virtual machine. Test dev 07. I want to see which host it is running. So all I need to do is say this. I can see it's running on ESXi1.lab.local. So, you know, the way we can correlate between the output and the things that I can do. So someone comes to you and say, hey, I have a VM that has a problem, and you have, say, 100 ESXi hosts running in your environment. How do you know that which host? One way of doing it is going to your web client, search by this VM, check where that thing, on which host it is running, going to the summary page, or I can simply run a query which gives me within seconds, not within seconds, within milliseconds, it tells me which particular host this is running and the details of that host. So similarly, get data store. Say get data store gives me a list of all the data store that's there. Now, in a similar concept, I want to say what's the name of this? I can say learn 2, right? Learn 2 is this, right? Or visa and data store. Any questions so far?
No. Yes, hello, Sajal?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So we just check the get VM command, sorry, get cluster and then minus VM name. So my question is, we need still we need the inventory service to be running, right? Because in GUI, when going to the web client, if inventory service is not running, we cannot search the VMs. So is that same in this case while we are using PowerCLI?
See, whatever you have, all the functionality inventory gives you. Okay, vCenter server runs to proper functionality. It needs to have all the components that there to run it. So whether you are using PowerShell commandlets or the web client, all you are doing actually you are querying the APIs or the REST APIs of this thing. So the functionalities that web client utilizes, the same functionalities are being utilized by PowerShell as well, PowerCLI as well. So if something is not running at the back end, if it's not returning result in your web client, it will not return your result in your PowerShell as well.
Okay.
PowerCLI as
okay.
well.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you. Your lab looks like a 6.5.
Pardon?
Your lab looks like on the 6.5 version.
Yeah, it's on 6.5.
Yeah, because that HTML option is there.
Yeah, that's the HTML option. Do you want to have a look at it? It's really cool.
Yeah. Yes, first we can focus on the thing.
And actually, it does the works faster than the typical web client. Though it's very limited at this time, not all the functionalities are there. But it runs then web client as of now, and I hope in future we get everything to HTML5 client. So this is how it looks in vCenter. See the response that I'm getting here is typically it is better than this, right? And you can go ahead and check the other things. And this is how HTML5 is shaping up. I hope in the next version we will get a full-fledged version of HTML5 client. Right. So this is my infrastructure. So I can query. I can say get command. I want to see what are the command that there. VMware.vim automation.core. Core gives you the total of the core functionalities. Say you can suspend a VM or start a VM, stop a VM, start a VM. You can do all this and remove VM, create a new hard disk or create a new virtual machine, move the virtual machine, move vMotion from here. You would go ahead and utilize these commandlets to build your environment. Say I want to see the details of a particular VM. Say get VM and then the test div. So I can get to see that okay, this is where it is, and I want to see the more details of this particular virtual machine. I can see that the name is this, the power state is powered on, number of CPU is 1, memory MB equals to 2 MB, and host ID on which host this is running and stuff. So I can get all these tasks to do. See.
Okay, Siddharth, just
yeah.
Okay, a small question. Sajal, the command which we are running right now, it is giving me a result on the screen itself. I was inquisitive to know if I have to pass the entire parameter and write it to a CSV or a TXT form. So how would I do that? Because ultimately what I need is that I get a detail of my host or virtual machine and store it into a CSV file so that I can check its details. So how can I do that?
Import CSV. Import or export. Import or export.
Export to CSV file.
Right. So, for example, let's see. Let's say get a VM and export CSV and say test.csv. Okay, I cannot try it. I don't have. Let's try it here itself. Okay. So I am into the inside scripts. I don't have Excel here, but that should do. So I have test.csv. Let's try to open it in Notepad. We got the output. This is how export import from CSV or export into a CSV format. You can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
One important aspect I said, everything is an object here. So when I say get VM and this, I want to see what are the members of this get member. Now get member is the commandlet through which I expose the underlying functionality of that particular object. Like what are the things, what are the properties that there of that particular object as defined. So now I get to see that this type is VMware Vim Automation VM Core, and then this is a universal virtual machine. I see what are the methods that I can run on that, and what are the attributes that there. So what are the different things, like which folder, right? which folder that is in, or the HI isolation response. I see all these underlying properties of this thing: number, CPU, say persistent ID, power, state, all that. By default, few things are shown, few things are not shown. Say, for example, let's see. I would cover these more. I mean, these are the advanced functionalities that typically you would go ahead and explore. See, this is the property of that particular object that I got, and I get to see this is the ESXi host that on which it is running. So similarly, it's just exploring, and you would explore yourself that what are the things that you want to do. All you need to know that how you can explore the things. Version, it gives me the hardware version 13. Right? So someone says, okay, get me a list of all the virtual machine that's our hardware version 10. Right? You just simply write a script one-liner with a one-liner, say get VM. Instead of saying this, I will simply say get VM and that version. So I get to see that I have virtual machines, and this is what it is. The other interesting way of doing it, get VM, and I say select name version. I get to see, okay, these are my virtual machine, and these are the versions for each virtual machine. Right? So this is how easy it is, and this is why you would go ahead and automate your environment using PowerShell scripts. If I had to do it through GUI, I had to, I don't know through GUI how we would do that. I mean, in PowerShell I just ran a single command and a single line. That is also a small line. It may be thousands of VMs. You may have 30,000 VMs in your environment, and it would give you a list of all the virtual machines, name and the version numbers for them. So that you know that, okay, next step probably I can do is upgrade the VMware tools, push and upgrade, and like the single one-liner to do that. So that task is automated through a single line. That's the power of PowerCLI, and that's exactly why you would go ahead and utilize it. So this particular session, I wanted to cover the basics, the groundwork. And next, so further reading, go ahead and go into the communities, the blogs. We have an absolute amazing community in PowerCLI. You post any question, someone else would give you an answer. You have examples in GitHub. You have sample scripts for you. You can go ahead and explore those scripts. Alan Renoff, he's the product manager, and he's pretty active. Actually, a few of the amazing scripts are written by Alan himself. So he is very hands-on guy. And then you have Luck D. He is the god of PowerCLI. That's the way we term him. I mean, he's there everywhere. And sometimes I wonder, you post a question in PowerCLI community, he answers it like throughout the day. I have seen him answering the question. So you can go ahead and read his blog. This is his blog. Or Alan, you post some questions, you would definitely get some answers. Next session, I'm going to cover advanced function or advanced functions, APIs, how you would go ahead and explore the APIs, underlying APIs. Since it's object, you can get access to a lot more things that's visible at the top end. Explore the REST APIs, VRA. When you talk about VRA, NSX, not NSX, I will not cover NSX at this point. I will cover VRA, how you would go ahead and explore, interact with VRA through REST API using PowerShell scripts or PowerCLI scripts. And then probably one advanced sample script. If you have time, we can have a look at that. That's what I'm planning for the next session. Right? Further question?
Yeah, good. No.
First of all, I do thank Siddharth to arrange this session, and special thank to Sajal. And it is really awesome and great session we have. And so, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Yeah, you are audible, and thank you so much. I mean, it's really heartening to see that it was helpful to you guys.
A lot of things like I'm just using this for quite some time, but a lot of things learned today, like go to online from the, check the PowerCLI assembly lights, just simple type -online, it will get you to the, open the browser and give you this all other to see the full exam options. And like storing a profile using the integrated what is called ISC, right? So these things, and using the variables and why we call it object-oriented programming. There's a lot of stuff. We again refreshed again, and this is an amazing session we have. I think I'm really looking forward for the next session, which is you'll cover the advanced function. And